Take the Leap is the podcast where we get real about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship and life. Sure, some folks make running a business look like a walk in the park, but let's be honest, it's more like a wild ride through a theme park with a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Join us, your co-hosts, Ashlyn
and Tori,
as we spill the beans on our own real-life experiences and shine a spotlight on some amazing guests. From the highs of success stories to the lows of epic failures. And hey, we'll even throw in some cringe-worthy, laugh-out-loud, embarrassing moments for good measure.
So buckle up and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday for a dose of raw, unfiltered truth about what it's really like to chase your dreams and build a business.
Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the startup world, we've got something for everyone. Even if it's just to make you think, wow, I'm glad I didn't do what they did.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Take the Leap podcast. We're really excited today to have CEO and executive producer Kalei Beamon, an award-winning video producer and a dynamic storyteller with a unique eye. Through her videos, Kalei helps businesses, associations, and foundations create massive exposure, increase brand awareness and donations, and generate sales. She excels at combining captivating visual elements with the written word to create a powerful video that compels and inspires audiences. Her projects appear on television, the internet, and at live events. Kalei's assignments have led her to locations on 6 continents and more than 30 countries throughout the world. She works with and produces programs of some of the largest associations, not-for-profit organizations, and businesses in the country. Thank you so much, Kalei, for being on with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we're going to dive right in. Will you share your Take the Leap story, how you got into and decided to be on this entrepreneurship journey?
Well, the Take the Leap story is kind of more like a shove. I kind of got shoved out into the entrepreneurial world. I'd always been in film production and video production, and I was working at a big production company in Chicago. I was there for 9 years. Loved it, loved my job, loved everything that I did. But things changed and the industry changed, and a lot of companies that were like ours started to close in the early 2000s, and ours was one of them. And you could kind of see it coming because there was lots of layoffs along the way. And so I was one of the last folks that was there. And I just remember getting the call at like 2:00 on a Friday afternoon from the boss who said, so close the business today. We're done. We're closing the doors. And by the way, there's no more money because we gave it to everybody else we laid off. So there's no severance. There's no nothing. It's just like, good luck to you. So I'm like, okay. So, I went home and just kind of chilled and kind of thought about what I was going to do next. And I kind of just decided that I need not ever do that again. And I was just like, we're just going to, unfortunately, when the company closed, I had a couple clients that were in the midst of some projects and they needed to finish them and they wanted to keep working with me. So I had work to go from, and then I just finished those projects and they gave me more work, and then I just kept going at it, and that was like 20 years ago, and I never looked back. So that's my take the shove moment, or just take the leap, a hyphen shove moment.
Wow. That's incredible. Wow. What a really wild story. And I feel like also too, there are a lot of people who've kind of been in that similar boat where they've started entrepreneurship kind of by accident, if you will, or out of necessity because something like that happened to them. But that's truly incredible that you're able to build that from that experience. Cause I have also been laid off, and that experience
it's a drag,
really
it's a drag, and it's and I liked my job, like the people I worked with. It was great, but it was great until it wasn't, and that's life. I just kind of learned, I guess now looking back, it's just everything's changed, industries change, what was needed yesterday is no longer needed today, especially in my industry back then, everybody had to go to big production facilities, and now people can produce videos from their phones. So, there was just things change and you can't control it. The only thing that you can control is, what you do next and how you're going to embrace the change and move forward, and so for me, it was just like, what? I like my odds on my own. I can maybe just try this. I had some work and trusted my talent and just took it from there and never looked back. And so I was lucky that, that I was in a career that I loved and I had people that liked working with me, and just took that leap and took that chance and bet on myself.
That's incredible. What piece of advice do you think you would give yourself, knowing what you know now, and give like yourself back then?
I would trust my talent. I would say that would be the number one thing. Knowing, when you have a gift, when you could do something well, and even if you're the only one who sees, what that is in you, that's all you need. And to not try to worry about how other people perceive you, because a lot of times other people are kind of worried about their own stuff. They're not even thinking about you. All that time that you think that they're thinking about you, they're not. They've got their own stuff going on, and to really just bet on, just believe in yourself, and remember that if I were to tell myself, really trust the talent and follow the path that you're directed to take it, and do it your way. I think the more that I tried to guess what other people wanted and to try to be that, the more lost I got, and so, but the more, and this comes with time and age and experience and all that kind of stuff too, the more I really believed and just owned, I guess ownership is more the better word, owned the gifts that I had and just followed my path and did it my way. The more I knew I was on the right course, and I think that's what I would have told myself is, I should have done this earlier in the day, but it's life, it's everybody's on the journey. There's got to be stuff to learn, and so that's what I tell myself.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that's one of the most beautiful things about entrepreneurship. Like, when people ask, like, why are you doing it that way? I was like, I don't know. That's just the way I want to, because I can, I don't have to check with no one as long as I'm not doing anything illegal.
Right.
I'm good.
It's okay to be yourself and to be different, and what might work for somebody else might be great. And I'm not saying that you should disregard all feedback, like, input from others is, good, but that doesn't mean you check yours at the door, and be like, oh, do that at the expense of what you have to offer. It's like, I'm a big collaborator. I bring on people who, for my projects, who know way more in their field than I do. And I'll say, okay, here's what I'm looking for, go make it happen. And they come back with something beautiful. That's part of my gift too, is knowing who can do what with what, but just understanding that your voice and your vision and your gift is yours to express here while we're here. So do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, one more question before we jump into the hot seat rapid fire.
Oh, okay.
What's your why? Why do you do this work? I know you got kind of shoved, but some people get shoved and then they go right back to some.
No, I've always been in film. I majored in film. I was lucky enough to get a job out of college in a PR firm in my local town. I worked for my local Fox station, and then I moved to Chicago. I got a job, moved to Chicago. So this was always in the wheelhouse of what I wanted to do. It was the going solo that was the shove, and I just think that I've always wanted to do this. So I've always just kind of, I never even for a second considered doing something else, I guess, for my career. I just always, this is what I love to do, and I just found a way to make it work. So that's, and you asked me something. You asked me about what my why was.
Yeah. Why to keep
doing it. I think I've always wanted to have some evidence that I was here. you know,
That's right.
That's
it's
fair.
just like, maybe, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever. If I'm not here, there's something here that says Kalei was here, and there's some evidence of that. So, and I love telling stories, and I love being able to spark some kind of feeling, in that human connection and things. And I've always just loved doing that and telling stories and telling them the way I see things, and unique with different ways that I kind of think things are interesting, and telling that story from that angle.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. Absolutely love that. I feel very similarly in working in marketing because I took marketing in high school, and so like this has been a part of my like brain for such a really long time. So I feel like the discovering things like that you are drawn to and passionate about is so important as well. So
Yes.
awesome. All right, we are on to hot
Water. Hold
seat
on.
rapid fire. Yeah, hot seat rapid
Sorry.
fire questions. No, you're
It's
good.
dry in here. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Bring on the hot seat questions. What you got?
All right. So first, I'd like to start off strong with this one.
Mhm.
What is the best or worst advice that you've received in your career?
The best advice I would say would be to control your thoughts, control what you're thinking, because what you're thinking and how you're feeling dictates what comes back to you. And for the longest time, I just let my thoughts go run wild, and just didn't even have any a level of awareness of why. It's just, you think a certain way because you do, and that's that. And as I started to just focus on professional and personal development, I kept hearing those phrases, control your thoughts becomes things, if you can, visualize what you want in your life, and then go for it. And so I that was, I think, a life-changing advice to me, because it applies everywhere. It's not just business. It's just, and sometimes it's easy to let your thoughts just go crazy, and take you places but you don't want to be. So that was the best piece of advice I've ever gotten. And if the worst piece of advice, I swear I've forgotten. If it was that bad, I'm not even remembering it.
That's a great answer.
I'm like, you know what? If it was bad advice, I have no place in my. It's not taken up right in my head anymore. So
such a great answer. I love that, because it's true. Like I feel like we focus a lot on like the things that went wrong or the things we shouldn't have listened to, and it's just really nice and refreshing to be like, okay, that's not for me. I'm not taking that with me. It's a really good reminder. Follow-up question for the controlling your thoughts part, because that is also something that I am working on. Do you have any tips on how you started to really hone in on that and do that?
First you have to be aware of it, because for me, I was like, I wouldn't even be aware of it. It was like I had to just, and I don't know how long I would be having like kind of and some thoughts are just like useless, it's just like, and some thoughts are like, kind of negative or whatever. I just wasn't even aware of it. So the first step is to really be aware of what am I thinking? What am I thinking right now? And is that even like my thought, or is that just something somebody told me and it's just sitting around in my head making other thoughts, So, and so when you become aware of it, then you kind of also been able to connect how that makes you feel. And if it's like something that's like happy, like a good thought, and get you energized, and do more of that. But if it's something that's that's just kind of making you doubt yourself or feel bad or angry or mad or something like that, recognize that and find something else to think about. Sometimes I think about playing with the dog, or something, or put a piece of music or something, just something that just to break it up, or just say, yo, I'm stop, not thinking that anymore, and just change it. And the more that you do that, you can kind of catch yourself. And I'm obviously still a work in progress. I was better than I was yesterday, but still got a ways to go. So, but that's where you can't do anything until you know. You don't know what you don't know. So just if you start, just catch yourself when it happens, be like, oh, what's that? Okay, no, we're not doing that. And then, just keep catching yourself and and take it from there and change those thoughts.
That's great. Thank you for that. That's great.
Oh, yes. It wasn't mine. Someone told me. So I'm no great genius. I was walking around, with just kind of like useless thoughts. But it's like that, someone had, and it might have been Louise Hay. I heard that from also. She was just like, thoughts are things. Every thought that is an investment. To see every thought is that you have an investment of what you have.
Yeah, that's.
And I'm like, okay. So you take them more seriously, you don't let things, take up space if that's really not what you want, coming back at you.
Well, it's like that self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Mm-hmm. You like think the thing, and so it it happens, and things like that.
Then you believe it because you see it, and it's just like, well, you thought it first, and just it keeps going around, and if you're not aware of it, so
yeah, awesome. Well, total pivot from that.
Okay.
What are some tips that you like to share with your clients to help them show up more confidently on video?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. The first thing I do always when I talk to people is I pull them aside and I kind of say, hey, look, this is what we're going for with this project. This is how you're going to fit in with this project. Are you cool with the direction of the story and the role that you're going to play? And hopefully they'll say yes because you're there and they know what they're there for. And then I'll just, because I want them first of all to know that whenever I'm doing a project, I want them to be there and want them just to be something positive. I'm not one of those gotcha people that, is looking to make this a bad experience. I want them to want to be there. Usually if I'm interviewing a client about their business or their company or their organization and they get nervous, people do, they just get nervous on camera, and they're the expert in their field and, but the camera, they say rolling action. And then, sometimes people get nervous or tongue tied and, I'll look around and I'll say, so who in this room knows more about this subject or this company than you? And they'll be like, nobody. Oh, exactly. Nobody. Yeah. So even if you mess up, no one's gonna know.
That's really true. I tell people that when they're like nervous about public speaking, I'm like, nobody knows what's on your cards. Nobody knows when you're speaking.
Yeah. So it's like no one knows more than you. We are going to be editing. Very rarely do I do things live, so it's not like you have to be perfect anyway. And if there's something that you really think is awful and you don't want to be in there, just tell me and I won't put it in there. I'm not, I want this to be, good for everybody. So, and that usually gets people, kind of to relax a little bit and just let them know that, we're just having like what we're doing here, like just a conversation. We're just talking one-on-one. You don't have to be fancy with the words or try to be like some, great poet or something. Just talk like you normally do. If you say, or whatever, we can, that's what people do. We are real people talking to each other. So, it's like I just did, and it's no big deal. So, and if you want to say something over again, we could do that too. So I just remind them that they don't have to be perfect. Perfection is not required. In fact, we don't like perfect anyway. It's kind of boring. So just do you, and we'll make you look great. And usually that kind of gets people to relax. And then once we start talking and we get into the interview, usually people relax. It's that anticipation of everything that it's going to be. The waiting and the mental things that they're thinking about, or they don't want to look silly. And, and sometimes I've had clients, show up with like notes in their hands, like things that they want to like read from, and it's just so that they're perfect. And I'm just like, no, we're not doing that. Let me have this. And that's where I come back with the line of who knows more about this than you? And they're like, no one. Great, then you don't need this. So it's just, and because that only makes people look more nervous if they're holding something. So you'd want to, give them in that position of confidence. So that's kind of where I start. And usually it's all that's really needed. I've never really had folks that after all that have totally just couldn't get it together. So I've been lucky.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's true. And to your point, like, we don't want to watch something that is robotic and super perfect anyway. Like as soon as somebody starts using a bunch of jargon and says something like super perfectly, like I'm gonna tune out.
Yeah.
So like we want to have, yeah, you want real authenticity. I
We
hate
want
that word.
people. You want,
Yeah, but like yeah.
we want to feel like we know who you are and that you're
Yeah.
being real, and people can spot phonies a mile away anyway, now, so it's like, it's just do you, and we'll make sure that it's great. That's my job. So you just,
Great.
just share the info with us.
I love that. And kind of like spiraling off of that, my next question is why is video so important why do you think it's so important for small business owners, entrepreneurs, nonprofits even? Why is it important for them to share their stories?
Oh, it's essential. It's video, first of all, is the most consumed content that there is, and people. So everybody's watching it, and so you if you want to grow your business, your organization, what have you, you need to be at least where the people are. Put yourself in the same space of where your clients are, your customers are. Stories are what people remember you for. They're not going to remember facts or stats or figures or boring jargon and all that kind of nonsense. They're going to remember, oh, it was a cold, dark day, and I was, in pain, and this lovely woman came and she opened the door and she helped me. She brought me groceries, and our family was like, wouldn't have made it through, and all those little details and specifics are what people are going to remember. And when they remember that, they remember you. And the best way to do that is through telling your story. And there's lots of different ways to do it, different angles you can take, different ways to say it. You could do it with, video, talk directly to camera like we are. You could do a whole shoot with B-roll and put that together. You could do just user generated content. There's all different ways to tell your story, but you got to tell it because there's just so much. There's so much content and so many. It's just a noisy world that we live in, and if you want to break through, you've got to do it in a way that's going to be remembered. And the one ththing people always remember is your story. And I think sometimes people shy away from telling it because they don't really think they have one. Like, oh, I don't have these the big It's like I always equate it to those like home improvement shows or those improvement shows where the folks that tend to be featured the most are the ones that are really have the biggest stories to share. And it's like, you don't have to have some, enormous obstacle to overcome or some just everyday normal life is what we all can relate to. And, sometimes it's even a little bit more relatable because, some of the smaller things that we go through in life is something that we all as people have experienced. And the more that you can get your audience to relate to you and help them to see, I'm a person too, just like you. I get you because, I feel your pain. I've been there. I've walked the walk. Here's how I've gotten through, or, here's how I want to help you through. And here's why. Here's somebody else that, we've been able to help or serve and how their life is getting so much better. It gives them inspiration, gives them hope that they can get through whatever they're getting through, that there's resources or whatever it is that they're selling in their business. People like to work with, it's been said a million times, they know, like, and trust. And so you got to let them know you and trust you and like you and all that's, wrapped up in a story. So you can do all that with the story. And then once you have it, keep sharing it. It's not enough to put it out there once. You've got to put it out in a lot of different ways, different times. You got to keep, say it and say it again.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about some of the, the stories that we know and learn from when we're little, like, biblical stories, you can be completely not in any religion and kids, still experience a lot of those things, regardless. There are those kind of like story archetypes and
well, there's the reason why the Bible's full of stories.
Like, yeah, exactly, because we remember them. Yeah, and it's been passed on.
Yeah, it's like he knew what he was doing when he was telling those stories. So.
Yeah. Well, kind of staying in that same vein, I know you've worked with a lot of different organizations. What has been one of the most impactful or perhaps inspiring stories that you've gotten to tell through video that just kind of sits in your head?
Well, there was a story I did in San Francisco with a woman who was going through she had gone through homelessness and hunger and was living on the streets, and was able to get some help from a nonprofit organization that I worked with. Um, in little by little, she was able to turn her life around, and later joined that organization and reached out and was able to help other people in her community. And it was just a full circle story, because she it meant a lot to her to be able to be in a position to give back, having been the person who was on the receiving end of help. And that one just touched my heart, because it's just a beautiful story about someone who really had real world struggles and made it because someone else cared. And then when they cared, she made her care. When she got back on her feet, she's turned around and doing the same thing for other people. So it was a beautiful
That's
story.
awesome.
Yeah.
But I think stuff like that needs to get told too. In my work with nonprofits, a lot of times folks are like, oh, the people who are receiving our services, they're never going to become a donor, a volunteer, or a contributor. But it's like, it's
Why?
each individual
Actually,
person could.
I
It's
found
like
that
the
I found that
opposite.
actually
Yeah.
just to be the actual
The
opposite. I find
opposite.
more people that
Yeah.
they were first involved, or even if they weren't, they were volunteering, and then they became more involved or with the organization or donated. And people who've been on the receiving end of recipients have been the clients of nonprofits, have nothing but affection and gratitude for the organization, and they want to do something to give back. And it might not always be on the same level, but you do get fans for life, I guess you could say, and that people want to contribute, whether it's word. You never know what. How do I phrase this? All donations don't look the same. It's not necessarily money. It's not necessarily time. It could be word of mouth, that someone referred someone, and that person came in. You don't know. And I guess that's one of the one thing that's always kind of sad with me. You never know what your actions, your gestures are going to have on somebody else. You don't always know whose life you're touching, or how, or even if you ever did. It's just you don't know. So it's like, okay, well, just because you don't see it right now on the bottom line documents, doesn't mean that what you're doing isn't making its way back into how you would need it to work for you in some way, shape, or form. So it's just it's that kind of thing. It's just like, you don't always know what you're doing and how it's, in the many ways it's going to help, but you just got to trust that it will.
I love that.
I love that too. That's really incredible. Sounds like you're doing. Yeah, it sounds like you've told a lot of really cool stories.
I've been very lucky, and that's one of the things I have to say I've always been blessed with, is just being able to meet and work with really good people everywhere I go. I mean, it's like, I don't even know how that happens, but I've been able to travel the world and meet and interview people from all walks of life, different languages, different religious beliefs, different cultural beliefs. And just at the end of the day, we all have something in common, and in that humanity in common. And it's nice to be able to tell these types of stories, and watch, even more importantly, the impact that they make, because they do matter. And it's not like we're they don't. It's like, and it's not, it's everyday people. It's not like we're talking about some famous person's story. Not that they don't have a right to share their story and it's not impactful, but everyday people matter just as much. So
yeah, that's incredible. And that's, I mean, I feel like that's kind of why a lot of entrepreneurs want to continue to be entrepreneurs, is we want to do work the way we want to, and we want to set up our lives the way we want to, right? So
yeah, I mean, that's definitely when I got the shove, was where I was at. It's like, you know what? This is not fun at all. And I did like my job a lot. So it was one of the reasons I was there 9 years, and I liked what I did. So it was one of the reasons why I stayed. I also had this, illusion of job security. I mean, I liked having, you know, a paycheck, and don't get me wrong, there ain't nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. But I think that was one of the reasons why I didn't just officially take the leap on my own. It was because everything was good. You know, I was like, okay.
Right.
But then after, I went through the closing and everything, I was just like, you know what, there is no such thing as job security. Not really, there just isn't. And it's not a good or bad thing, is what it is. It just, anything can happen for any reason. It doesn't have anything to do with you or them, or just, you never know. But I just felt like, if that's the case, then why don't we just go ahead
and
do
this on my own? Now that I understand that that's not, and I've loved it, and so I mean, if there's ever, I'm not saying I would never ever go back into the workforce again, like a job, but if it was something that I loved and it was the right opportunity, and I really, really, really wanted to do it, but I would also go in understanding that, it's, who knows how long it'll last, and it's just, I would go in with a different mindset than I did when I first started my career. I guess it's just a different understanding. So it's just, as long as I get to do what I love to do, then it's all good.
Makes sense.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. My last question here is going to be a complete pivot.
All right, we like that. Keeping me thinking.
Exactly. What song or playlist do you have on repeat right now?
Well, I always have some form of Stevie Wonder on my playlist. Stevie's a staple. I think there's something of his on every single playlist that I have. My favorite all-time Stevie song would probably be Sir Duke, because that's the one I first remember ever hearing. But you really can't go wrong with anything Stevie related. What did I just download the other day? I think I can't even remember what I just downloaded the other day. I think something Hazy Shade of Winter came on when I was at the car wash. I was just sitting in the car wash. I'm like, oh, I remember this song. So I went, this is a great jam, and it was great. It was, I just remember, I love that song. So I've listened to that a bunch of times when I was like working out. And Lose Yourself, Eminem's always on my workout jam. I think it's on everybody's go me
pump up mix.
Yeah, it's like, it's like, that's always around, because that's just like the best perfect song for just, so it's just a great song. So I listen to that a lot too. So I've got a wide range of musical tastes, but I think my go-to is always Stevie's never far behind.
I love that so much. I love that. And we are going to, I think, create a playlist of all of our guests.
That's a great idea.
Favorites this time. Yeah.
What do you guys like? What's on your list?
Oh, what's playing on repeat right now? Chapel Roan has just been like invading my life right now. What is that called? Apple Music just put out like whatever your most played songs of 2024 on, and I was like, dang, I only think I started listening to her in September. So it's awesome. Most of the list. Yeah.
Taylor Swift was my number one artist. But yeah, Chapel Roan was definitely on there. Sabrina Carpenter, like a lot of like popular songs, but then also I have a 2-year-old, so mixed in with some of the popular songs of today, there's also Snoop Dogg's like kids album that he did. And then there's
he made us guilty.
Like,
I have to go grab it.
Who doesn't want to be Snoop Dogg? I'm like, I was watching him at the Olympics, and I'm like, you know what?
Oh yeah, I know.
Can I just?
I want to get to the comfort level.
Yeah. I'm like, I have Snoop envy. It's like, oh my god, you are having the best time ever. It's like, oh my god,
it's incredible. And he has one of his songs called the Affirmation Song. I highly recommend it.
Oh, I'm gonna check that out.
It's great. It's not just for kids at this point anymore. We listen to lots of kids music is on my Spotify, along with literally anything depending on my mood.
Nice. Oh my god, so much music.
We'll have a great playlist once.
We'll have to come back and do like a playlist jam party or something.
Mhm.
We can listen to everybody's favorite tunes.
Awesome. Well, Kalei, we have gotten to the end of the questions. Was there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to share? How can folks find you? Anything like that?
You guys are great. I think you got everything out of me. I'm not sure what's what's left. Thank you. And my social handles usually at Kalei Beamon, pretty much Facebook, Instagram, X, if that's what we're calling it these days. And of course LinkedIn, and my website is videostorytellingfornonprofits.com. You can check me out there, and YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel, all under my name, because I figured that's enough. It's Kalei Beamon, and I should be the only one out there, I think. So
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We'll make sure that all of those links are in the show notes from today's episode.
Thank you.
As always, for our listeners, if you enjoyed this podcast, let us know with a review, like, follow, subscribe on all of the platforms, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the podcast.
Yes.
Bye for
Thank you,
now.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Take the Leap podcast. We hope you found useful takeaways you can apply to your entrepreneurial journey. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and keep in touch and follow us on Instagram. If you have business questions, shoot us a direct message or leave us a comment. We'll try to cover it in an upcoming episode. And visit our website, taketheleap-today.com, for more resources like our online course that accompanies this podcast.